Hello and welcome to Rajya Sabha TV. You're watching The Big Picture with the host Rajat Kane. In this episode, we'll discuss the sea of possibilities that Act Far East policy opens up. Speaking at Eastern Economic Forum this afternoon at Vladivostok, Prime Minister Modi, while unveiling the Act Far East policy, extended $1 billion line of credit to Russia's Far East. The Prime Minister also reiterated that India will walk shoulder to shoulder with Russia, its time-tested friend, in its development of resource-rich Far Eastern region. Act Far East policy comes in succession to Modi government's Act East policy, which was developed soon after his government came to power for the first time in 2014. Addressing the plenary session of the Eastern Economic Forum, the Prime Minister said his government has engaged nations in East Asia under India's new Act East policy. The mandate of Eastern Economic Forum is aimed at developing the business and investment opportunities in Russia's Far Eastern region. To discuss how it presents a huge opportunity for India to develop mutually beneficial trade cooperation with Russia, we're joined with our guest in the studio, former diplomat Mr. Shiv Shankar Mukherjee, Bhanuchandar Nagarajan, former consultant, the World Bank, and Santosh Tiwari, Senior Director, FICCI. To open the debate, sir, I'll start with you, Mr. Mukherjee. How will this new forum help India in extending its trade narrative?
Well, as in most other things, it will not depend on just the joint statement issued or just the declarations of intent made at admittedly the highest level, the President of Russia and the Prime Minister of India. It will depend on implementation. Now, the $1 billion credit that has been awarded is actually more a symbolic gesture of India's declaration of intent to invest in that very sparsely populated area where Russia is wooing investment, which is rich in resources. But it'll all depend on the follow-up and the implementation that is done by both sides. Mm-hmm. And frankly, to put it very brutally, frankly, the ease of doing business is not something to write home about either in India or in Russia.
Okay.
But the good news is that this meeting and this agreement, what happened in Vladivostok, indicates one very important requirement for promoting trade and investment and involvement in both these areas, which is that there is political will at the highest level in both countries. There is very genuine and very strong political will to do it. How to do it, how to implement it is going to be what we shall have to watch. So that is my take on what happened there. There's a good political beginning, there's a good political declaration of intent, but commercially, I don't see hordes of Indian investors suddenly landing up in Russia. In two areas, certainly there will be more movement, which are already there on the ground in a very big way. One is defense, in which Russia continues to be what the Soviet Union used to be, which is our major defense supplier. And secondly, energy, in which we have already invested huge amounts and in which we look forward to Russia increasing its share of hydrocarbon exports to India. In this area, we should see and hopefully will see improvement in the future. And overall, this kind of symmetry always has a positive effect on relations across the board. Mm. So to that extent, yes, a positive outcome, very positive outcome. But in terms of trade, as you asked, we shall have to wait and see.
Yeah. Mr. Bhanuchandar Nagarajan, the Far Eastern Russian region is something perhaps to be explored as the ties between two countries goes. Now, how far this move would be helpful for India's economic diplomacy?
There are multiple aspects to this engagement. Economic is one, strategic is another, then there is current political scenario that demands a certain thing. So the summit covers all the three. Mm-hmm. If you look at the geostrategic perspective, both India and Japan, the other invitee to the Eastern Economic Cooperation Summit, would like to contain Russia through partnership with, would like to contain China in partnership with both Russia and the US. Perhaps but Trump wants good relationship with Russia, but their domestic politics doesn't allow. And some, the foggy bottom mandarins, the foreign policy mandarins in the US, some of them are also against it. So perhaps India could take a lead. And both India and Russia want a multipolar world. So this is from our geostrategic perspective. From Russia's perspective, vis-a-vis this particular Far East region, there is a great mistrust of the Chinese, particularly in that region. There has been inflow of Chinese, and they have been establishing huge farms that cultivate soya beans, and like they do pig rearing. Before all of that, like the ramifications from, or the repercussions from the 1969 Soviet China war was felt there. Okay, and there's the second largest city, Khabarovsk, is like 30 miles from the border with China, and the people in the Far East are always afraid that like China could actually come and take over that city any time. And also, like they had a series of border treaties after 1969. Like, the final one happened in 2004, in which like 2 islands that were disputed were given to China, which the locals resent. So there's a lot of mistrust. In fact, there was a hit TV show in 2015 which called China a deceitful friend. So lot of even in popular culture and even among people in the Far East, there's a great mistrust of China. So perhaps President Putin is trying to like kind of diversify the investments and diversify the industry there by inviting not just Japan and India, but also like Mongolia and Malaysia. So that is a strategic aspect of it. As far as political aspects of the summit, like India got a tacit assurance for its move vis-a-vis the revocation of Article 370. So the statement was made today in the presence of President Putin. So which is a big win for us.
Right.
Also, like in the economic parameter, way too many things are happening. Like in fact, the current trade between India and Russia is like $10 billion. If you compare it with say US, which is 142 billion, with China is 95 billion. It's kind of like it's very minuscule, and also it's one-dimensional, mostly in terms of defense and energy. So this effort is to actually kind of diversify that interaction, economic cooperation to timber, mining, in so many things like healthcare, skill development. So it's a multi-dimensional approach. In fact, he went with like four chief ministers and like 50 industrialists or something like that. So and also like a lot of strategic dimensions. For example, like there's a cooperation in space, like where they're trying to help us in training 4 astronauts that would help that will actually go to space, the Gangayaan program, and the Vladivostok Chennai route that is opening up. So there are like very strategic initiatives as well. So this is kind of a very multi-dimensional engagement with China.
Right. Mr. Tiwari, I mean, restricting it primarily to trade dimension to say, what sort of opportunities does it open for the industry, as Bhanu also pointed out that trade ties or trade magnitude between the two countries happens yet to be explored to the level it perhaps could have been.
That's very correct, and the groundwork for this conference or this forum meeting was happening for quite some time. FICCI has been the lead chamber for preparing the groundwork for Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Vladivostok. So August itself, Commerce and Industry Minister Mr. Piyush Goyal had led a delegation where FICCI President Mr. Sandeep Somani was also there, and he had with him 140 plus business delegation, and this was a very good interaction, on the basis of which now he is again there with Prime Minister, and this time this delegation has 60 plus industry people. So what has happened what happened in the earlier meeting when the Commerce and Industry Minister was there, a lot of interest came from Indian side in areas like which Bhanu mentioned, in hydrocarbon sector, in natural resources like timber, etc. And then healthcare, he also mentioned that, skill, IT and new areas, on the basis of that now number of discussions have happened, and you would have seen that 15 MOUs have been signed, out of which 2 have been signed by FICCI President himself. So lot of developments in terms of trade are happening. I had mentioned you one thing in the India-Russia Business Forum today itself. FICCI President mentioned that 27% of the gas reserves and 17% of oil reserves of the whole Russia, of that region, is in Far East. So if Indian companies which are already there in Russia in hydrocarbons, if they can explore, opportunities and get into this sector, that would be great. Then you have diamond cutting, etc. Then you have agriculture. In agriculture, you have immense opportunities and possibilities in Far East. So if Indian companies can go there, explore opportunities, you will see that whatever line of credit, $1 billion line of credit which Prime Minister Narendra Modi has announced, that may fructify. So opportunities are huge, and Indian businessmen are ready to capitalize on those opportunities. How far it will go? It will depend on what kind of relationship, the business relationships are fostered or are made, during these kind of visits.
Right. Mr. Mukherjee, 5 years ago when Mr. Modi came for the first time, we heard Act East policy. Now, it's in succession today, Far East policy has been unveiled. How successful do you think India's Act East policy has been in terms of gradual transition from Look East to Act East now?
Well, there I would say I think we should take some satisfaction at the fact that the Act East policy has actually delivered. These are things which are very difficult to quantify.
Right.
I worked for 40 years in the area of on representing government in international relations. Sometimes there are things which Manu referred to strategic interests, which are you cannot quantify in rupee or dollar terms, but which are enormously important. If you see, the cumulative effect of our Act East policy in terms of our relationship with ASEAN, which is of enormous importance. These are among the fastest growing economies of the world. This is in our backyard. They are strategically important from our security point of view, and enormously important from our commercial and economic point of view. In fact, as SAARC has gone down and down in its, in its usefulness, what we are promoting is actually sub-regional cooperation, which is again looking towards the east with BIMSTEC and BBIN and so on. If you start from the Far East, the relationship that has been built up over the years, the last 5 or 6 years, and even more, but certainly quantum jumps in the last few years with Prime Minister Modi, the relationship between him and Shinzo Abe. There's a huge relationship that we have already with Japan, not only bilaterally, but not only in terms of overall international relations, and very friendly relations as a buttressing factor, but including operating in not just third countries but third continents like the Japan-India-Africa corridor. There's an element of trust and complementarity in our natural endowments which underpin this. Even China, where we actually face a foreign policy challenge of huge dimensions, actually, if you look at the Act East policy, it enables us to engage with China to strike that balance between confrontation or a disputational relationship and engaging to keep the peace and then take advantage of bilateral trade. So from the Far East right down to Southeast Asia, the Act East policy has been actively pursued with results. This time I would say with results. We've had the entire ASEAN heads of state and government invited to India. We have an annual ASEAN summit which discusses very, very concrete initiatives. With Japan we have an annual summit and flowing from that, the actual economic and political operators take their cue from the highest political level.
Right.
So to put it to sum it up, I would say the Act East policy has been one where we can say our objectives have been achieved to quite a large extent. Right. It has served our national interest. It is logical in its reach economically and politically. And I think there is every intention of the government, from all that I can see, to pursue it even more actively in the future.
Right. Manu, just to carry forward Mr. Mukherjee's point of view that, it's difficult to quantify, but certainly we have gained significantly from the Act East. Now, the opening up of the credit line of $1 billion, how significant do you think that is?
It's quite significant. In fact, like this conference can be called the vibrant Gujarat of the Far East, right? It's a subnational conference, and kind of Prime Minister Modi has a excellent idea of like how subnational investments work because like he was Chief Minister for Gujarat for such a long time. In fact, like he was very clever to like tap into the softer aspects of the relationship. Like he actually spoke about the Siberian cranes passing through Gujarat, like how like India was the first country to open a consulate in Vladivostok, how like so many Gujarati diamond merchants work there, so many medical students study there, so on. And also there's great personal chemistry between the two leaders. I think like he's kind of trying to leverage all of that, and also like he's trying to like help the objectives of kind of trying to find a win-win situation with the objective of President Putin, who wants to develop the Far East, because that's probably the least developed region in all of Russia. So in fact, like President Putin also talked about like exchange of trade through rubles and rupee instead of dollars. So lot of these things have been discussed. This $1 billion credit will probably go a long way in kind of facilitating investments and kind of spurring industrial growth in that area. So it has an element of how to say a soft touch,
right,
other than the brute power of money.
Satoshi, just to extrapolate from the point of view, will this credit line of 1 billion open other avenues, or rather avenues in other countries or other areas beyond Russia's Far East for the industry?
Yes, it's a big message. It's a big message coming from India that, see, now you have to look at India and take this country differently. Now, if Prime Minister of India is going there in Russia and saying that the country is opening a $1 billion credit line for investment in Far East, that's quite a statement, And you rightly pointed out that this will open up other avenues also, in other areas also, and you have to look at it completely in the changing dynamics of global trade. What has happened in last few years is that FTAs are not working, and even if it is working, it is working for some other countries, but not for India.
Right.
So we have to look at different regions and different areas where we have natural allies like Russia. So if India is looking at Russia as an ally and where it wants to promote its businesses and businessmen, then obviously it comes from the confidence which Prime Minister has gained in last 5-6 years. He has gained tremendous confidence due to his personal chemistry with global leaders, and also due to his successes in the state, in Gujarat, and also as Prime Minister of India, that now he can take India to other places and propose that Indian businessmen are capable of handling businesses in other countries. It was not the case, a decade back, or probably even 7-8 years back. So now this case is there. So this $1 billion credit line, it's showing that India is emerging as some country which wants to tap businesses in a different perspective, where your global trade environment is changing. It is there to look at other countries and opportunities as something which it will come and capitalize on.
Right. Mr. Mukherjee, another subplot of Prime Minister's visit to Vladivostok has been a statement from Russian President Vladimir Putin regarding Article 370. So has it once again reiterated the stand of the world leaders that India is a country that can be trusted, and especially when it comes to internal matters, nobody can be allowed to interfere?
Well, that's our position, and I wouldn't go so far as to say that the whole world has jumped in and lined up behind us on every subject under the sun. But when you're talking of Article 370 and Kashmir, yes, more than the very categorical statement issued by Russia that A, it's India's sovereign right, and B, it's India's sovereign internal matter, is a matter of great satisfaction. But with that is exactly what we say, and that backs us without any ambiguity. Second thing is that which we can draw a lot of satisfaction from, that when the Chinese in their the only word I can use is very duplicitous manner tried to organize a meeting of the Security Council which would come out with at least a statement of the president, which is not really a resolution but has significance. The Chinese were isolated 14-1, and the meeting ended up as an informal meeting without even issuing a statement, although the Chinese delegate again issued a statement as though he was issuing a statement on behalf of the Security Council, which was immediately, refuted in every account of the meeting. So I think what is even more important as far as the statement in Vladivostok is concerned, the Russian statement is concerned, is that Russia is a member of the P5. Now there will be, as you all know, Pakistan is going to now draw out every arrow in its quiver to try and embarrass India in terms of Kashmir, human rights, you name it, on every international platform, the United Nations General Assembly in September, the Security Council, right now the UN Human Rights Council in Geneva. So the most important body really within the UN system, the international system, where we need to be on our guard is basically the Security Council. And there to have someone like a P5 member like Russia with its veto completely on our side is a huge advantage. And there are others in the P5 that support our stand. However, we've seen over the years, I mean, you take the example of UK, for instance.
Right.
I wouldn't call them, I'm not saying that we don't have friendly relations with the United Kingdom, but we've had any number of instances which make us very, chary about support from that quarter. The attacks on the Indian High Commission and the lack of police action and the lack of a strong condemnatory message is a case in point. But the Russian statement, therefore, gives us that much more ammunition to fight the Pakistani propaganda that is now going all out to defame India and to use this issue to embarrass India as much as possible in international fora. So therefore, yes, for us that's, by the way, a little more than just this statement. Let us not forget that the old Soviet Union was a tried and tested friend in very adverse circumstances, in crisis situations. It was the Treaty of Friendship with the Soviet Union that gave us the space in 1971 to do what we did vis-a-vis Pakistan, Bangladesh, the situation that arose at that time with the United States ranged against us. The situation is now that we have extremely good relations with the United States, and there's been so much talk about continuing the old Soviet Union relationship with the new Russia, which we have managed to a very, very great extent. I think that is one of the success stories of Indian diplomacy, that we've kept that relationship very vibrant, very positive and very friendly, in spite of the odd irritant here and there.
Right.
So this statement, I think, is not only a matter of satisfaction as far as this specific issue is concerned, but it underlines the fact that in the overall context of our relationship with the rest of the world, in terms of the foreign policy challenges that we face, it is, I think, an indicator that we have Russia on our side, and it is an important country.
Right. Bhanu, just before we conclude, you also agree that, this visit of Prime Minister to Russia has been more than just economic diplomacy.
Absolutely, yeah. We spoke about many things, like the strategic aspect, the political aspect, the economic aspect, everything. In fact, one thing we perhaps did not speak at length is how it ties up with our Make in India program.
Right.
In fact, in March there was an agreement to manufacture AK-203 rifles here, and there is an MOU now to manufacture spare parts for the equipments the military equipment that we are using already. But as Ambassador Mukherjee was mentioning during his initial comments, a lot of this is, the devil lies in the details. How the two sides work together and carry it forward is very important, because as we know from the Kamau helicopter agreement that happened in 2015, it's part of Make in India, but it's I mean, it hasn't seen the light of the day yet. There is a MOU on like export of agriculture and dairy products from India, rice and dairy products from India, which is important for us. Then there is production of the minister was saying that they were talking about an agreement on production of control rods for nuclear reactors. So many things. There's shipbuilding and ship repair, which is actually a great employment generator. Especially like when we are looking at the job scenario in India. So as you just pointed out, and as my fellow panelists pointed out, it is not just a simple a regional economic summit. It has actually kind of taken a very strategic, long-term and multi-dimensional character.
Right. Thanks, gentlemen. I'm afraid we're short on time. Otherwise, would have fielded more queries on it. But clearly, Eastern Economic Forum is a huge opportunity, a sea of opportunity for India and its business to grow in less explored Far Eastern region of Russia. Thanks for watching Big Picture. Keep watching Rajya Sabha TV. Thank you.